Hey everybody, welcome to another Linked Couples Ministry. So glad that you have joined us tonight as we continue to minister to those who are engaged as well as married. If you're watching right now, of course you are, please do us a favor and share this at this time. Get somebody on, tag somebody as we continue to talk through those necessary things that are needed to help you in your relationship, in your marriage, in your engagement. We meet every third Tuesday of the month at 7 o'clock. We can't wait to be back in person as we do some great marriage things. Some ideas are popping up and percolating. But for right now, we're still online. But we're so glad that you've joined us tonight as we seek to help through Scripture, through the Word of God, through life, how to navigate those serious relationships. So again, please do us a favor and share at this time. So tonight, I want to talk about forgiveness. And Paul in Ephesians talks to us, in Ephesians 4, about forgiveness, leading a life of forgiveness. And those who have been forgiven much should be able to forgive much, according to Jesus. And it's important for us to not fall into that trap in Matthew 18, the parable that Jesus talks about, where we have been forgiven, but can't forgive others. And Jesus shows us in Matthew 18 that if we cannot forgive, that the consequences that we were forgiven of could come back on us. We need to be a forgiving people. And we often hear these terms like faith, forgiveness, and all these things. And we think we know what they mean. But tonight we're going to talk about what forgiveness is. And forgiveness is necessary for any relationship. Because in relationships, we're with human beings, things do happen. Situations occur where forgiveness is necessary because we're dealing with flawed humanity. So what is forgiveness? One of the first biblical definitions of forgiveness is to cancel a debt. To cancel a debt. When somebody hurts you, it feels like they took something from you. Or it feels like something happened where this person owes you now. And you're looking for payback, which is revenge, we'll talk about a little bit later. And we're looking for payback. This person owes me something. I was at peace before this person did this. I had joy. I was calmer until this happened. And then you feel like this person or life or the world owes you. And people who are living wounded feels like they're owed everything. I've been hurt by life, so everybody owes me. We don't say this, but we act like this sometimes. Unforgiveness can give you a sense of entitlement. Pain can give you a sense of entitlement where the world owes me everything. You know, people have to be this, so this has to happen. But forgiveness is learning how to cancel that debt and come to the realization that that I'm canceling this because the person that hurt you, watch this, y'all, hear this, can't really pay you back. You ever had somebody hurt you and they apologize and you were still hurt? Because why? The apology by itself doesn't necessarily mean that you are healed yet. You're glad they apologized. But forgiveness is learning to cancel that debt. You don't owe me a thing. Because the person that hurt you often isn't the person that can restore you. Only God can restore you. So a big part of forgiveness is learning to cancel these debts, to learn to let it go, which brings us to our next one, to drop it, to get to the place where you just drop it. I'm not worried about it no more. I'm not going to let it consume me anymore. I'm dropping this. As the song says, my kids frozen, let it go. I'm canceling this debt. I forgive you, and you know you're walking in good forgiveness when I can forgive you before you even apologize. I'm canceling this thing because I'm not looking for repayment from the person that hurt me. I'm looking at reward from God because the person that hurt you quite often isn't the person that can fix it. And I'm not saying the person that hurt you shouldn't fix it, or if you hurt somebody, you shouldn't go make it right. Go do that. What I'm saying is you're learning to cancel that debt. You're learning to drop it, which means that, like God, you choose to remember it no more. God says in Isaiah, I've forgiven you and I don't remember it. Now, that remember doesn't mean that the memory's not there. It doesn't mean amnesia. Remember means to choose not to bring up. You know you've forgiven somebody when you stop bringing it up. You know somebody's forgiven you when you stop bringing it up. Now, from a marriage context, it's every now and then, that's just like that time. That's just like that time. I thought you forgave me of that. I did. And they just keep bringing it up. Forgiveness is the choosing not to bring it up. I'm choosing not to let this person pay for what they did for the rest of their lives. Because when I've forgiven, I'm choosing not to bring this thing back up again. I don't keep bringing it up all the time, over and over again. Because if I'm constantly bringing it up, this thing still has a hold of me. Now, in a marriage context, let's think about this. We can't keep doing the same thing and then getting mad when the person's bringing it up. If I mess up on Monday, I'm sorry. Do the same thing on Tuesday. Do the same thing on Wednesday. And on Thursday, I do the same thing. That person says, it's just like you did it this day, this day. I can't get mad at them. Well, my behavior hasn't changed. But once there's real forgiveness and once there's real change, I'm choosing not to bring it up again. You still remember it, the feelings, you can remember the feelings, but forgiveness means I'm choosing to let it go. I'm trying my best, or I've gotten to the place where the person doesn't have to pay for what they did anymore. If we keep doing little small things to make the person pay for it, and we're punitive, we haven't forgiven. Retaliatory, we haven't forgiven. We forgive and we choose not to bring it back up again. Because why? Paul tells us in 2 Corinthians 2 that if the person has changed, they're repentant, he says, stop making them pay for what they did. Because if you do and you make it harsh and severe, you're going to give place to the devil. That's 2 Corinthians 2, 1 through 11. Chapter 2, verses 1 through 11, Paul talks about that. That once the person's changed, I can't keep putting the weight on them because eventually they'll break under the weight. I have to learn to forgive. Now, you forgive for two reasons. You forgive to remove or you forgive to restore. I forgive to bring back in or I forgive to let go. Depending on what you do will determine how I forgive you. Sometimes you'll forgive somebody and the relationship may never go back to the way it was depending on what happened. I'm talking in a general sense now. All right, you come to my house, I go upstairs, I come back downstairs, you steal my TV, I'm going to get my TV back, but you ain't coming back over again. I can forgive you and move on. Right? I can not be mad at you and move on with my life. Or I forgive to restore. Now, in a marriage context, depending on what happens, if it's harsh, like abuse, ain't no forgiving for restoration. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you somebody beating you up that you forgive and go back in there so the abuser can continue to do the same thing. No, you get up out of there. Some people will say, well, just stay and pray. No, baby. You leave and pray if you're in an abusive situation. Praise the Lord. All right. So, but there are a lot of situations, these little small things that happen in relationships. Somebody said something a certain way. Somebody did something a certain way where you talk through it. You both act in a mature way. You'll work through it, work it out. You both make the necessary changes and you forgive to bring restoration. I've been through situations with counseling people and helping marriages. And after a situation happened, they're stronger after the failure than they were before. But they had to do the work to do that. Both people had to be willing to do the work. And if there's something challenging that happened where it feels like there's the point of no return or some huge struggle, especially if you're a member here, you call the church, talk to bishop, call us, can help work through this situation, so you can make a decision on what you want to do. But the reality is I forgive to restore or forgive to remove. But a lot of the things we're talking about, small stuff, I ain't talking about no extreme crazy stuff. There's a lot of forgiveness for restoration. All right, because we're both flawed people in a relationship and we go through challenging times and we have to forgive and change our behavior so that after the offense has happened, we can come back to a place of reconciliation. Again, I'm not talking about extreme stuff like abuse and constant infidelity and drug, talking about just the normal relational things. Those extreme things, those require some conversations. I just want to make sure I'm throwing it out there so nobody misinterprets what I'm saying. So we talked about forgiveness and what it is. The second thing is forgiveness does not restore trust. Forgiveness does not restore trust. Changed behavior does. And I alluded to that a little earlier. Forgiveness does not restore trust. Changed behavior does. I could forgive you and still not trust you. Trust is built up over time of changed behavior. Trust is earned back again. Here's a crazy thing about trust. It takes years to build up and one moment to destroy the whole thing. Trust takes time to be developed, and it can be completely eroded in one action. So we have to protect each other's trust. If someone is giving you their trust, honor that, protect that. And if trust has been broken, changed behavior is what helps to restore that. Time and changed behavior. Where it gets to the point, I've proven that I've changed over time. And the distance between the infraction and where we are now has a huge gap in it. Where I've proven I'm a different person. So changed behavior is what restores trust, not just forgiveness. Forgiveness opens the door for trust to be restored. It doesn't necessarily restore that trust. Change behavior does. So I remember counseling a couple one time, and somebody did something they weren't supposed to do. And I told the individual, whatever you do, if you do anything that looks like the infraction, the person's going to think you're back to your old ways again. Even if you're innocent, if it looks like it, the person's mind is going to go back to the infraction and you're up to it again. We have to learn to put ourselves in situations that make us look good and refuse to put ourselves in situations to remind the person of previous behavior. I can't expect you to trust me and I'm still giving you reasons not to trust me. Change behavior restores trust. Forgiveness, y'all, watch this, doesn't remove consequences, but it doesn't seek revenge. Forgiveness doesn't remove consequences, but it doesn't seek revenge. If you hurt me, I'm hurt. And you have to deal with the outcome of causing that pain. There could be a lack of trust, some distance, some conversations, etc. But forgiveness means that there may be some consequences, some appropriate reactions, but it doesn't seek revenge. Whew. The maturity is you may want to get revenge. You may want spite, but why hurt yourself trying to get back at somebody else? Feeling like you have to one up the person. Forgiveness doesn't remove consequences, but I'm not seeking to hurt you back in return like you've hurt me. That's hard for some of us. You have to leave some of that stuff up to God. In life, learn to forgive, but also understand that if you've been wounded, you are allowed to have a proper reaction to that wound. But I don't do things out of being petty, out of being spiteful and revenge, because forgiveness will help remove that sense of revenge. Because when you're hurt, revenge feels justified. When you're hurt, revenge feels appropriate. But we have to learn to forgive and not seek revenge. Because why? I want to open the door to healing, not revenge. Forgiveness opens the door for healing, closes the door for revenge. Revenge doesn't heal you, forgiveness does. You may feel good when in the act of revenge, but you're still going to be hurt after that feeling goes away. A lot of people do something out of spite and revenge, and they're still just as wounded. Because revenge doesn't heal you, forgiveness does. Forgiveness opens the door for healing. Now, this healing process, when an infraction has happened, the offender doesn't dictate the healing process. The offender doesn't dictate the healing process. If I cause my wife some pain, I can't tell her when to get over it. All I can do is forgive, and vice versa. We forgive, we work on it, we try to change, but the offender doesn't dictate the healing process. What's crazy about us, we want to do, we do something wrong and, you should be over it by now. But when somebody hurts us, I need all the time in the world. The reality is that the offender does not dictate the healing process. The offender has to go along with the consequences. Again, not revenge, dealing with the outcome of their decision, and then try to work on making things right. We all make mistakes. The problem is when the mistake is ongoing. If you failed, pick yourself up, learn, don't make the same mistake again. But the offender does not dictate the healing process. And the one that's been offended forgives so they won't stay locked into that season. They can be free from the event. And last but not least, reconciliation and trust takes time. Reconciliation and trust takes time. You don't get over certain things quickly. A lot of things takes time. Because again, trust takes years to build and in one moment can be destroyed. And when I'm talking about trust being restored, trust being broken does not always have to be just one big event. Sometimes it could be a bunch of accumulative small events that erodes trust away. If we're on a boat, if I shoot a bazooka into the boat, it's going to go down quickly. But if I shoot a couple shots, small bullets in it, eventually those small holes will start to bring in a bunch of water. Trust can be eroded over time or can be eroded in one moment. But again, it takes years to build up, which means that reconciliation and trust takes time. And sometimes the person who's been offended, that thought, the feeling doesn't go away, but they're giving the person a chance to change so that the feeling over time gets better and gets more healed, but there's still that little reserve there of the potential of what a person can do. I remember talking to somebody, and I'll close on this. We were talking about hiding things, and I remember a bishop said in our premarital counseling, if you don't do it, there's nothing to lie or hide about. If you don't do it, there's nothing to hide or lie about. So the key is not, let me do this and then hide it. No, don't do it so there's nothing to lie or hide about, because trust takes time to build. And reconciliation also takes time. This is just a quick thing, and we'll discuss this a little bit more next time. But I hope you enjoyed this. You learned something from it. If you have these harboring feelings towards your spouse, talk to the person. The inability to talk to the person about it means there's a lack of trust in the relationship. Build the trust up so you can have these conversations so you can move on from some things. And our office is always open for counseling. Just call the church if you need help. Especially those who are your members here, you have help to help you through this. And a part of our Link Couples Ministry, especially when we get back in person, is to provide services and help. So glad you joined us again tonight. Share this if you can. Join us for Bible study tomorrow, 12 noon in person, in the evening at 7 p.m. online and in person. We're so glad that you've joined us tonight. God bless you, and we'll see you later.